Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being the show where I talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the season premiere of The Blacklist. A fantastic season premiere with quite a few things to kind of talk about, so let's get right into it and start breaking everything down. First of all, big story event of the episode is like, oh yeah, I have Reddington. Yeah, he's a bounty hunter now. It's like, wait, what? You even have Liz be like, what? You're being a bounty? No, give us a blacklister. It's like, no, I'm going to go off and be a bounty hunter. And it's like, basically in this world, you need, information is always changing. His explanation to Cooper is like, information is good for this one period of time, the next moment it's not. So it's like, it's kind of an in the moment thing. And basically he doesn't have the connections that he used to because this is after the fallout of his business. And I appreciate that too. It's such an interesting thing. It's not like, oh, boom, next season he's already back on top. It's like, nah, Reddington's literally got to build his empire back up. The empire that literally took him like 20 years to build up. Now he's kind of got to start from the bottom. Like, yeah, he's still got his reputation to a certain extent because people still know who he is and everything. But even amongst the criminal underworld, it's like, oh, Reddington? Yeah, I'm sure that's something we're going to see even more. So we didn't really see it this episode, but I'm sure we're going to see it going forward this season as people like, oh, you're Raymond Reddington. Oh, you're not as dangerous as I once thought you were. You've fallen so far. But it's like, it's Raymond Reddington. No matter what position he's in, you never underestimate. Because people who underestimate him tend to lose and or die. But nevertheless, he's being like a bounty hunter in this episode. They end up going after this dude named Smokey Putnam. Basically, he works with this whole carnival situation to launder and steal money. Which he got mixed up with skinheads, cartels, a whole thing. One of his partners in this situation, Hawkins, she's like testifying against him for a lesser sentence. And he's like, if, Reddington turns him over, then he's going to die. Just crazy insanity ensues and everything like that. Guy proved to be very annoying, but for Reddington, it's like, I got to get my money, I got to get paid. He's like, I'm going to work every second to earn that $40,000 I'm gonna get for turning you over. Which is it's so weird to see Reddington like that. And even before then, it's like, oh, look at me, I'm living here. And even Liz is like, really, I forgot. It's like it's like the pool area to like a shop, a mechanic shop. And it's like, she's like, you're living here? This is your new place? Oh, come on, yeah. And then there's like all the families nearby. He's waving to him, throwing quarters in the water for the girl to get. And he's like, oh, she was going after those quarters in the water for like 2 hours. It's just like, it's so weird to see Reddington like that. And also what I love the most is the whole interaction between them. Because even when he's talking to her at the beginning of the episode, he calls her sweetheart. He's never called her sweetheart in the entire series, but now it's like the whole father-daughter situation. It's like, now he says that. And even at one point, she's like, even though you're my dad, she's like, oh, that's so weird to say that sentence out loud. Because basically, she's like, no matter what the circumstances are, even if you are my dad, you're still my CI, so our situation hasn't changed that much. But you do see her a little bit, like I said, throughout the series, there's always been moments where she's been a little more lax on Reddington. And now, because her relationship with Reddington is always up and down, but now it's like, he's my dad, and I know he's messed up a lot, but the fact of the matter is, he is my dad, and he's done everything he's ever done has been for my benefit, so, or at least for my sake, so, I do love the twist of that whole, like, everything unfolding the way it did, because I was wondering, because it's like, because even like Liz is like, okay, what are you up to? Is this really all about $40,000 for you? And it's like, oh, I guess he is on hard times. Like, all his money has basically ran dry. Kate got all his funds frozen, so there's no coming back from that for him. So he's slow on the revenue. I guess that was his compensation at the beginning for letting them stay there. He's like, oh yeah, I stole this car from a valet, and just like, oh yeah, here you go. Yeah, I guess that was kind of a favor, plus a little money on the side too. So, or maybe selling the car was to get the money to pay for the rent. Like I said, it's weird, because you always have, throughout the entire series, Reddington has always had the upper hand in certain situations. He's always been on top, and now he's just seeing him kind of where he is now. It's just weird. It takes a second to kind of get readjusted to that. But going back to what I was saying, that the whole thing, like, you felt like Reddington might have had some plan, and it seems like he did. That everything turning Smokey in, which he tried to escape twice, so he even tried to make Liz sympathetic to his situation. He's like, oh, and he got mixed up in this situation because I had a gambling situation, because my dad's kind of a gambler. We carry on the curses of our family. It turns, he compares it to a nature versus nurture situation, that no matter what, your nature will always win. What's in your DNA will always kind of be there. And it kind of coincides with, because he figured out the whole situation. It's like, oh, the reason why you're helping out Reddington is because she's your dad. And, you're willing to cross some lines, but not a lot of lines for him and stuff like that. Everything you're doing is for his say. Which she's like, no, it's not. It's for justice. But I think that's something that, for a quick second, hearing his story made her think about it. Because it's like, if him being her dad means that there is a part that's always been a question for her. Like, if, like, you're my dad, that means what makes you bad? Maybe there's something of that inside of me too. So that's something she's always worried about. And I think, that hearing him talk, kind of made her think about her own particular situation. I mean, obviously that was just to make her sympathetic so he'd get away. There was truth to it, sure, but more so the fact that he was being sympathetic. But Reddington set it all up so basically he can ultimately get both of them out of their particular situation. It's like he doesn't have to rat on the guys he stole the money from, because the case got dismissed because their witness Hawkins went missing because Reddington has her. And then it turns out like Reddington wants both of them because it's like Hawkins very good at laundering money, and then you have Smokey being the more logistic tactics type of guy. And in my mind, he's slowly rebuilding his army, building himself with allies and everything. I guess you could argue that this is almost them taking the place of Kate. Like, no, in no shape or form will anyone ever take Kate's place. Like, no matter how things ended between her and Reddington the way they did, no one will ever take Kate's spot. But I think it is kind of like, I don't think he ever will get that close to anyone else again. Because, like, Kate is the example of, like, never let that happen again. Like, you never get close to anyone. You never let anyone. And I think that could arguably be the same thing. Like, he didn't tell Liz what he was up to, which, to be fair, it's not like he ever really does. But he kept her very much in the dark about everything because she legitimately thought, oh, this was all about money. It's like, because she's like, you act like you're so okay with everything, but ultimately you're just afraid because you've lost everything and you're not sure if you can get it back. Which I think on some level, whether Reddington isn't the type to show weakness, so I think that there is some level to that there, but nevertheless. So he's found himself a little bit better off. He's found some two associates with this whole, criminal business and everything, trying to rebuild his empire and everything. And even Liz and the FBI is, to a certain extent, going to help him, because if he rebuilds his empire, it basically means that they can get more blacklisters to take down a lot more bad guys. It's that age-old lesser of two evils, which in a lot of people's eyes is like, is Reddington really that much of a lesser of two evils? Arguably, that's just been a constant argument throughout the entire series, I'm sure. Interestingly, we never actually got introduced to them, but there is a new FBI director, and it turns out that this FBI director is checking all, the books, seeing where all the funding is, and see what each unit in particular is doing, trying to find out what is exactly they do. And remember, Cooper's whole team is a special unit in the FBI and stuff like that. No one outside your group really knows, because it's kind of kept hush hush and everything. But it's now he ultimately decides that he's going to disclose the fact is that Reddington and Liz are father and daughter, which everyone else found out in the news. The only one we really saw react to it is Haran. He's the only one that really reacted to it. I mean, the others was like, oh, so what were the results? It's he didn't, no other reaction from Wrestler. To be fair, Wrestler dealing with his own situation. I'll get to that soon enough. And Samara and Haram are kind of caught up in their whole situation, being like, oh, we're a couple, picking up where season 4 left off with them. Haram is kind of like, oh, we should be professional and everything. But it's disclosing information. And he's like, oh, Cooper, talking to Cooper being like, yeah, we should come forward about personal relationships and stuff like that. And he's like, well, me and Navabi are, and he's like, dating? And he's like, yeah. He's like, it's okay, Haram. It's okay. You don't have to worry about it. He's like, oh, yeah, me and my girlfriend can still keep dating and work together. Yeah. It's also, once again, I think I might have said this during the season 4 finale, I don't remember, but nevertheless, it's finally, it took you guys long enough to finally get together. It's finally, hopefully you stay together and not be a situation of something getting in the way. It's you're finally together, stay together. Don't let other BS kind of get in the way. But getting back to what I was mentioning earlier, it's a whole situation with Wrestler. I was actually shocked when it was oh yeah, Hitchin's body's been found. I was like, wait, what? Look, and it's and I'm sure Wrestler had the exact same feeling. I'm like, Why is her body still there? What's the whole point of hiring that fixer guy last episode in season 4's finale? It's like, oh well, I was like, okay, there must be something else to this and everything for him just to leave the body there. Even if you're setting it up to make it look like an accident, why? You know, you dispose of bodies, you fix these type of situations. Well, the most obvious thing to do is to clean up the evidence and make it just look like it was an accident, which he ultimately does. But Wrestler kind of got up in his face about it and everything, which made him kind of dive deeper into Wrestler and finds out, oh, Wrestler, you're actually a cop. And it's like, now I can blackmail you because in actuality, I didn't get rid of the evidence. I hid it, so I'm going to use it against you. So do me some favors. I'm like, oh, Wrestler. I was like, I knew that was going to, of course that's going to come back to bite you in the ass like that. Of course. Like, you don't, like, because he has no leverage in this situation. I don't know how you're going to find a way out of this. I mean, truth be told, the whole Hitchens situation was an accident. But then again, it's even something Cooper brings up in the episode. It's like, you have motive to kill her. You know, it's like you're the last person to see her alive and everything. You blamed her for Wright's murder. And so it's kind of like, you know, there's so much evidence against him. And now it's like, oh, well, it looks like an accident. But it's like, there's a part of me, like, the way Cooper was talking to him, it's like, oh, I just had to check. It's like, Cooper's not stupid. Like, Cooper can see through some stuff, and he's pretty smart. And it's like, whether he's 100% letting go of this whole situation, I doubt it. I think on the surface level he is, but maybe below. Maybe it's just because he's like, no, the Wrestler's a good guy. I'm not going to question his loyalty or question him doing the right thing, especially considering the Wrestler is like the stickler for doing the right thing. But, I mean, we know it was an accident, but it's like, even then, that turns into a whole situation of him being investigated. And once again, going back to what I said, him being the number one suspect, and it's like, oh, you had malicious intent. It wasn't no accident. You know, it turns into that whole situation. So that's why he turned, I mean, because it was like, either way he would lose his job, because it's like he killed a high ranking official, even if it was by accident. You know, it still stayed him forever. He'd never be looked at the same way again. Like, he might lose his job. Even if he kept his job, even if he didn't get outright fired, he'd probably be demoted to a different unit or something. So I'm very curious to see where Wrestler's story goes in this, season. Like, the one person he could probably rely on is probably Reddington, but I don't know if Reddington would back him up on that. I would think so. I mean, I think Reddington relies on Wrestler enough to be like, oh, okay, you need me to help you out with this. I mean, he might not even want to. Like, maybe at some level Wrestler would be like, if I tell him, he's just going to blackmail me too or something. So I'm curious to see how he finds his way out of this particular situation. And what particular things, because you can already tell it's obviously going to be something that involves like a case in the future. Like, he's going to be connected to a case, and Wrestler has to cover up stuff or lead the team off the trail for that fixer dude. So it's going to turn into something like that, sadly. So like I said, I'm just curious to see how that all plays out. And kind of going back to that said situation about kind of like a stain or whatever, it's like the whole situation with Liz. Like, as I brought up earlier, Cooper is going to, you know, it's like, I want to do the right thing, you know, so I'm going to tell, you know, like, disclose that you and Reddington are father and daughter, and that basically changes everything. Like, everyone kind of, like, especially Wrestler, let's not forget, like, Wrestler kind of looked at Liz like, whoa, why is he going to her amongst anyone else? That's why they had to vet her a little bit, be like, whoa. Does she have some kind of connection? Is she secretly working with Reddington or something like that? So, but it'll go back to a situation similar to that, where obviously this team won't give her as much scrutiny. I mean, there might be some cases where they're like, oh, of course you're taking Reddington's side on this situation, which Liz is very objective when it comes to Reddington, when it's like, okay, like, even she kind of lays down the lines of like, I'm not going to change. I'm always stay me. I'm always going to try and do the right thing. I'm going to help you out in everything, but this is all for the greater purposes of taking down Blacklisters. So I don't ever ask me to change or be someone other than me, which Reddington's not going to ask her. Like, I want you to be who you are. Didn't say that, but you can infer. But I am curious to see that going forward, because a lot of people will be looking at her like, oh, she's raping Reddington's daughter. Oh, that guy who was a criminal for 20 years. Oh, so everything makes sense. The only reason why she got this position because her dad, blah, 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 blah. And not even just that, but it's a situation of like, well, she's she's always been so tight-knit with Reddington, but I thought she had professionalism. It's just like she was doing right by the FBI. But it's like, oh, yeah, don't forget about that time back in season 3 when they went to run together and everything. And then just like that, so like just everything they've been through will stack against her in this case. And even like the new FBI director will be putting the team under more scrutiny even keeping a closer eye on Reddington and Liz for that particular case. So I'm curious to see how things kind of unfold on that front as well. But obviously, the big thing that's carrying over, even bigger thing carrying over from season 4's finale is the suitcase that Tom has, a last gift from Kate, which Denbei spent most of the episode looking for it but couldn't find it because we can't let Liz find out about it, because it's one of those situations where it's like him and Liz are on good terms, and whatever that suitcase represents, there's so many theories about what it could be. Could it be Liz's mom? But I don't think it's Liz's mom. But maybe it is, because maybe that added extra layer to that whole episode of him like hallucinating her mom because he knows that she's actually dead. He's always claimed that she's dead, and maybe that's because he was actually telling the truth, or what, you know? Like, I'm so curious to find out like what that body represents, you know? Like, there was a part of my brain that, like, it's something they've kind of brought up. Was that season 3 or season 4? They did a whole storyline where that guy pretended. It was like a con artist. Guy was pretending to be the real Raymond Reddington, saying, like, oh, this Red, he's a fake Red. It's like, well, what if that was them kind of alluding to this storyline that actuality, the real person dead in there is the real Raymond Reddington, and he's not Reddington, that he's someone else. That he is Liz's dad, but he isn't Raymond Reddington. He just assumed that persona. But then, like, why wouldn't Kate? No, because that can't be the case. Because Kate, you know, she sent that body specifically to Tom. So it has something. Like, the question is, why would that? Because that also throws another layer to it. It can't be her mom, because Kate would know. Because Kate, like, always wondered whatever happened to Liz's mom. Like, she never found out herself. So if that was Liz's mom, like, I feel like we would have found out or something. Like, so I'm curious to find out what that body represents. I don't know. There's too many possibilities. And I mean, a lot of it, I'm sure, is far-fetched. And it's just like, oh, that's completely wrong, which I'm fine with. Like you said, at this point, it's like so much theorizing about what things could possibly mean. We won't really know until, like, the time comes and more clues are given to us about the whole situation. What is interesting is the fact is that Tom is back full-time. I'll kind of get to that in a second. Liz is super happy to have him back. It's like, oh yeah. And he's like, he was about to tell her something, but then it's like, oh, Reddington's your dad. It's like, oh, well, she's like processing it and everything. It's like, okay, well, hey, I'm going to be here for you. I'm not going anywhere. And then we see kind of a jump, like almost like a little bit of a flash forward showing Reddington and Denbei shooting and killing Tom. It looks like in their place, which is like, it's so interesting that it did that. They've never done that before. I love it when shows do that. They mess with time. They give you something way ahead in time. Like, that's probably going to be like super late in the season when something like that happens. But it's like, you're going to see like all these context clues to get like, oh, I mean, you're going to wonder why they got to where they were. I'm assuming that's after like Liz ended up getting the body, or like, you have Tom setting it up to send the body that way. Not unless it's a situation where it's like, he wasn't there to kill Tom, that basically someone else, not unless it's misleading you and it's actually someone else attacked Tom in the apartment. They showed up and killed the guy that was attacking Tom, and Tom happens to die in an apartment, or maybe he slips unconscious and not necessarily die. Maybe that's what it could be. I don't know. I mean, if they wanted to kill off Tom, they could. I didn't know this until I looked it up, because it should have correlated to me last season when Tom popped up in the season finale like that, but sadly the Blacklist Redemption got canceled, so it's not coming back for a second season. So to me, I chalk it up to be like, basically, this kind of throws a whole continuity out of whack to a certain extent, but then it's like, well, arguably you could be like, okay, everything that possibly would have happened in a second season or whatever, everything that would have went down for Tom's story, taken care of off screen. You will never get to know the story, but everything was taken care of off screen. Look at it like that. I think that's how you can basically chalk it up. Oh, and now after everything's back, Tom's back. It's like, oh, I'm back in your life. And it's like, wait, well, what about everything? It's like, nope, you never get to know. They might reference it, like certain things, sure, but they probably would never go into full detail about what exactly happened. So at least that's my rationale about that whole situation. I guess that kind of happens when you have a spinoff and stuff like that. Kind of the backlash, the drawback to having a spinoff like in that particular circumstances, which sucks because I really liked the Blacklist Redemption. I was really hoping it would come back for a second season. Sadly, that wasn't the case. So, but Tom is back. So, and because I also think, like, you know, we never get his story in this too, because it's like there's not enough room to handle Liz and Reddington's story and Tom's on top of that. Like, you can sprinkle in here and there, but like they set it up as this big, it's a whole big story on its own. That's why it needed its own series. And it's like there's not enough room to implement it, like throw it into the show too. It kind of throw everything off kilter and everything too. So arguably, you could be like, okay, so you don't have to worry about those things. It's like we cleaned the slate by killing off Tom. Like, from a storytelling perspective, I guess you could argue that's how it can go. Once again, I don't think they're going to kill off Tom. They could. I'm not saying they can't. I think they could, but I don't think they are. At the very least, if they are, I don't think it's going to be under the circumstances we think it is. I don't think Reddington or Dembe kill him, because in all honesty, that would force his hand even more so when it comes to Liz. But once again, it also comes down to the circumstances of, did he already set things in motion for Liz to get the body or whatever information? Like, we don't know. Like, it might even be far beyond the body at that point. It's like, how did Raymond and Dembe find out about him having the body? So many questions. I am so excited to have the Blacklist back. I am so intrigued to see where this season takes us, what challenges await Reddington now. Like, so far, I'm sure, because this is a situation where it's like enemies are bound to strike because you are at quote unquote your weakest. So this is where a lot of enemies are going to be striking at him. So we've also haven't seen anything about the Cabal either. Now I think about it, added in it, that's another layer of things we still haven't touched on, because the Cabal was still active. Granted, we never really got to see much. I mean, we saw Hitchens here and there, but we never really see the Cabal hasn't really made any moves since season 2/3. They've kind of like kept to themselves. So the question is, now that Hitchens is kind of removed from the equation, what does that mean for her role in the Cabal and everything? Like, where does that stand? Like, could that be where Reddington's story potentially takes him? Will he be welcomed into this Cabal? Like, because, like, to fill that void that Hitchens... I mean, I think they need someone in that position. Like, they couldn't just use Reddington. Besides, Reddington's not a player in the game anymore because he's so low on the totem poles now because of his power and position kind of disappearing. So they'd have to get someone else in that position. I'd be curious to see who they'd get to replace her, or whether there'll actually be any, like, series effects of her death. Like, obviously, for wrestlers, sure, but just with this whole Cabal situation, I'm curious. I mean, like I said, a lot of that's just me theorizing. We would just have to wait and see whether there's any validity to anything I brought up or whether I'm completely wrong. I'm completely fine with either or, you know. Yeah, like I said, I'm just interested to see how this all plays out. But really, that's all I want to talk about in this episode. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.